The star citizen universe is one whose destiny is to expand throughout the cosmos, beyond its planets and moons through nebula and jump points into the star systems that fill our galaxy. But with the upcoming Alpha 3.7, we're taking a look within, going deep below the surface to explore the cavernous depths of Stanton's planets and moons. From top to bottom, this week we're exploring the work bringing these new cave systems online, from the procedural tech that makes it possible, first revealed on SCL earlier this year, to the way designers use those tools for making traversable layouts suitable to a variety of gameplay needs, then finally how lighting and audio designers set the mood and create an atmosphere that brings the whole thing to life.
Sei mal fröhlicher, Mann. Du bist voll unhappy.
Ja, das ist mein Standard-Behavior.
Almost there.
Ja. Okay, ich muss mich auflockern.
Cool.
Das ist kein Problem. On the last Inside Star Citizen, we were showing the entire R&D phase that we have done. So since then, we have actually finished up all of our assets.
Yeah, we've also involved all the other departments a bit more. We are actually quite happy since all the building blocks are now in. We are now able to generate a full cave. We had our caves being procedurally generated by the layout tool, which is also used by the truck stops. And those truck stops, they float in space.
They don't have the planet and the terrain as a context to them. So that's why it was tricky for us to embed these entrances as caves nicely on the terrain and have them generated so they don't, dip under the planet's surface and then dip out again. That would be quite problematic. So.
Yes. The content that gets created by the layout tool needed more information in order to work with those caves. And since the caves have to be put on planets, we used the placement tool that has been used for the outposts before. We actually managed to make it work, and now we are able to use the procedural layout tool together with the procedural placement tool on planets, which is a quite nice heads-up thing for the future whenever we want to create more content.
The harvestables and minables are scattered on tag points that are also procedurally scattered out in the caves. So yeah, actually it's not just going to be empty caves that you walk in and out, but there's actually things to find, stuff to do, right? Resources to gather. They are using our new organic shader, which allows us to go for a much higher fidelity, a much better definition in terms of shape. So it should be quite a level up in terms of quality for our geological assets.
We planned to add a little bit more breakup to our rocky archetype of caves. That means we have plant root-based elements that we overlay to break up the cold and harsh rocky angular surface.
So even though it's all procedural, we have a decent amount of control, which means that we can determine a cavern to be completely covered in roots, or have these glowworms sitting at the roof, and also the man-made content.
Those are basically abandoned camps that other NPCs left, and you are now able to discover that kind of stuff. So sometimes you might even find some dead NPCs in there, like people who tried to explore it but didn't survive.
Procedural dead people.
Oh yeah.
In the very first couple playtests, we realized that it is really difficult to tell where one should go, where you could climb onto and stuff like that. So we had to find a solution visually. And the solution for that actually was for us to add another element, which was like a little lichen layer on top of our rocks. And wherever that lichen is, we kind of try to navigate the player and lead the player towards the actual navigatable path.
We spent a lot of time walking through our own caves, and I've got lost myself as well, many times.
So maybe it will help with the orientation, because then you get in and you don't get lost, and maybe you can find yourself out. We're trying to push out for 3.7 and have the players test what we have right now, the very first version of the caves that has the most necessary elements in it to make up such cave. But for the future, it means that we have this very big, nice-to-have list of ideas and elements. Definitely want to tackle them in the future for sure, because it's way too exciting stuff.
With the tech developed by Patrick and Florian and others on the planetary content team, the process of implementing caves then moves on to designers to create and ensure properly traversable layouts that can be used for interesting combat, future missions, and the upcoming FPS mining gameplay feature.
For initial release, we are aiming for on-foot entrances. So we have uncharted and charted caves. There's also another secret variant that I won't mention. So the mood we were looking for in a cave is very close, very tight, very scary and dark, and very labyrinthine. For creating caves, we use the same technology that we use for creating rest stops. So what that is we create a rule set of rooms. So be that a connecting room that has 2 to 3 connectors on which we can connect corridors. And then the technology randomly generates whether that has a connecting corridor on it or just a cap. And then we can go from there and you can extrapolate that into a massive cave and we can create graphs within graphs within graphs, and it can just explode into big, beautiful interior spaces. So the things we have to consider for traversal is making sure there's a good sprinkling of gameplay elements, small spaces, large spaces, really tight little places you have to squeeze around. So you would be crawling under things, commando crawling under things, mantling up over stuff. So there's a really sense of a different height. So we really have to generate the graph and very carefully curate the order of the space and jump into game mode after we've generated it to make sure it feels right, really feels like you're splunking through a cave. When we're generating caves, we have to consider the potential for FPS combat. So that would be making sure there's large open spaces that can hold more people, of course, because if you're fighting, there's more than one person. And then when it comes to FPS mining, we also have to think about where we want to spread the resources throughout the cave so that you have richer, potentially denser veins deeper in the cave, so you're rewarded for traversing through it. But for future releases, we'll be looking for massive sinkholes that you can land your ships in, and also huge cave entrances that you can drive your ground vehicles into. The players will notice there's areas of the caves that look lived in, and we aim to put AI there in the future so we can use those in missions and for other such exciting adventures. We're really hoping people enjoy the caves because they bring a big opportunity for nice, small, tight spaces that we don't usually explore in Star Citizen.
Once Gareth has validated a layout that works for all gameplay needs, it falls to our lighting artists to create an atmosphere that can both showcase the mysterious and unknown depths of any planet or moon, and present this new endeavor in an effective manner that allows you to see where you're going without breaking the mood.
With the microphone.
Okay.
So just a clap.
Before we start with anything, with the lighting, we always to figure out what is the part that we need to focus on most. So for caves, the corners and the big rooms are the parts that we need to focus on, because it's very important to tell the player where you're at. We always give them a little bit of hint from the lighting. Like if there's a corner to the left, then we just put the lights to the left of the corner, so you can see, oh, there's a light coming through the left side. So it gives you a hint that, okay, maybe I can go that way, maybe I can just turn left to figure out where to go next. And also it's pretty dark, so it's very tricky to balance because you want it to be very realistic, you want it to be dark, but you also need to help the player not to get lost in the caves. So that's the biggest challenge. The atmosphere a little bit specular, especially on the cave rocks. There's some kind of parameters which gives me a lot of control. Like for example, when the player get closer to the field light, the field light will disappear, and surrounding you it's going to be pretty dark. But the other field lights are still on, so we use that kind of technology, like little tricks to keep you dark surrounding you, give you like this tiny and scary kind of feeling. Glowing worms are nice, they're beautiful, they're like mystic. We work with the VFX team. They apply those particles on the rocks. When they finish their job, I just added those field lights to support this VFX. So yeah, when you go deeper down into the cave, maybe you'll encounter this kind of area with glowing worms all over the ceiling above you, which is, I think it's pretty nice effect and a very special experiment for the players. The flashlight is pretty tricky because it's so strong at the moment, so it's kind of like flattening everything, so all the work from the environment might be washed away because of that strong light. So the lighting team is working very closely with the engineering team as well to improve the torch light, make it more subtle, and even when you have the torch on, you are able to see what the cave looks like and still give you that kind of cinematic and moody cave. So yeah, that's what we are trying to fix.
But Arthur's lighting only gets us halfway to where we're going, as creating the proper soundscape is equally as important in adding character and flavor to these new subterranean environments. That's where James from the audio team comes in, as he takes the reins and brings the audible universe of Star Citizen to the cavernous reaches below.
So the idea behind the caves was to create a more eerie mood. So by doing this, I designed a bunch of drone sounds and then a bunch of like one-shots and things like that. And they trigger randomly throughout the caves. The deeper into the cave you go, the more of the one-shots you get, and the drones duck down in sound, just to give it a more eerie, kind of creepy vibe. So I've made the actual ATSs visible here, so you can see how the sound has been placed around the map. One of the challenges we faced with this is the markup's different from other locations, so we couldn't use like room shapes to mark it up. So these have got to have quite tight attenuation radiuses so the sounds don't bleed out throughout the map. So the idea behind the sounds for rooms like this is to have a lot of drones placed around the area and also fill the space out with one-shots. One of the problems we had for areas like this is that it sounded too low-passed and too bassy. So to bring out some high end, I've added some one-shots like rocks falling and things like that and water drips in the distance. And it just helps to make the space feel a bit more airy and add a bit of life to the area, while still sounding a little bit creepy. So this is what the caves look like from the outside. As you can see, they don't look like very much, but when we put these lights on, you can see that this is the basic room layout. So the floor actually gets like stuck on the bottom part here, and then I mark all the audio up in here. So you can see I've placed these speakers around the area, and these play like one-shots, debris falling, water drips, and drone sounds as well. So the idea is when you move around the room, the sound changes because you get closer to these speakers here. So as I go over here, you get less of these ones over here, which would be one-shots and drones. So it just gives the area a bit of movement to it. So although the room system looked a little bit confusing, once we're actually in the caves themselves, when they're all procedurally generated, it does make sense. What I would normally do is I'd walk through these caves and listen to the transition between the rooms, and then decide if I need to go back to the other room system and make any changes to it. One of the considerations for the caves was the actual reverb. So as you can see here, I've actually designed my own reverb sample for this. This is based on the room system, which encompasses the entire cave itself. Further down the line, I'd like to break this up into more granular pieces so we can set up reverb on small corridors and small parts of the cave, just so there's a bit of variety to it. I hope this gives you a good idea of how the sound design in the caves is done. When we add the mission givers and NPCs to the caves, it's going to create new challenges, things like how the voices are going to work in the caves with the new reverb system, and other things that go along with that, like what props are going to be there. This is going to present new challenges for the sound design team that I look forward to sharing with you.
So what did we learn this week? If anything, I hope we learned that creating these new cave systems is a collaborative endeavor involving even more than the 4 teams you saw here. That as Star Citizen continues to expand into the stars, there are plenty of opportunities for exploration and experience beneath the surface of our planets and moons. And that you can write an intro to the show about Plato's allegory of the cave, but the social media person is going to talk you out of it, and he's almost certainly right. To our subscribers, our thanks for making each and every show like this possible. And to everyone in the Star Citizen universe, we'll see you next week for a first look at FPS mining and the other features of Alpha 3.7. Until next time.
Thanks for watching. For the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can check out some of the other shows, and you can also head to our website at www.robertsspaceindustries.com. Thank you very much for watching.